Welcome to this overview of the funding available in 2025 through the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership for the construction of predator-resistant fences. Funding is available to support the construction of fences that deter coyotes, wolves, bears, and other predators from entering calving and labbing areas, pastures, extended grazing areas, and deadstock composting sites. Constructing predator-resistant fence is different from normal livestock fencing, where you are typically fencing to keep your animals in, like a pasture, for example. Predator-resistant fences are built and designed to deter predators from climbing over, passing through, or burrowing under. In the program guide, you will see further details of eligible fencing types, including wire net fence and electrified high tensile fence. Different types of wire net fence are eligible for the program, such as page wire, welded, fixed knot, or hinge joint fencing. The photos here show a predator-resistant fence constructed with fixed knot fencing that is 71 inches in height. This particular one has an apron on it which extends out from the bottom of the fence along the ground. Using an apron in your construction is highly recommended to prevent predators from digging under the fence. This is a deadstock compost pen constructed with the same type of fencing material. Here is an example of an electrified high tensile fence. Under this program, 7, 9, and 11 wire electrified fences are eligible, with the 9 and 11 wire ones recommended in areas where predator activity or risk is high. The photo on the right shows one way of deterring predators from burrowing under the gate by using a barrier such as a concrete threshold. When you submit your application, it will be assessed to determine whether your project will be approved. Applicant eligibility and completeness of the form will be taken into consideration. If funding is limited, priority will be given to those with higher predation risk and to those constructing fence types known to better resist predators, such as the net wire fence 70 inches high with an apron and the 9 and 11 wire electrified high tensile fence. Upon reviewing your application, you will receive a letter telling you if your project has been approved and the maximum funding available. To be eligible, you must have a paid livestock predation claim under the Manitoba Wildlife Damage Compensation Program in 2021 or later. You also require a Manitoba Premise Identification Number. In addition, the project must take place on agricultural land in Manitoba, and you must manage it to deter livestock predation. Regarding the program payments, you will be reimbursed for 75% of total approved eligible expenses up to a maximum of $10,000 in total grant funding for fences constructed in 2025. In order to reach this $10,000 total funding cap, you'll need to submit invoices and documentation of eligible expenses of $13,333 or more. Also, depending on the fence size and type, approved funding may be less than the $10,000 cap. We will further discuss how the payments work in the next few minutes. In addition to fencing materials and supplies, there are other eligible expenses for the program. Incremental personal labor can be claimed at a rate of $30 per hour. Incremental personal equipment can be also claimed at fixed rates that can be found in our program guide. That being said, there is a cap on the total amount of personal labor and equipment that can be claimed. Your claim for personal labor and equipment will be capped at $3 per linear foot of fence for deadstock compost areas, $1 per linear foot for predator-resistant fences, or $1.50 per linear foot if your predator-resistant fence has an apron. Other eligible expenses include subcontracted services, equipment rental, and PST. Please remember that to be eligible, invoices must be dated April 1st, 2025 or later, and proof of payment must be provided. All invoices for eligible expenses must be issued in the applicant's name, and payment must be made by the approved applicant. Here's a list of specific items that are ineligible for this program. I encourage you to refer to the program guide for further details and a more complete list. Some of the specific ineligible items include barbed wire fences, power sources, temporary fences, waterers and feeders, land preparation, fencing around for feed storage areas, as well as composting equipment. Funding is determined by receipts submitted for eligible expenses up to the program maximum of $10,000 in funding. Additionally, caps are applied based on the length, type of fence, and its purpose. Let's examine a little closer to get a better understanding of how these project caps work. For example, if you chose to construct a wire net fence 70 inches in height, your project will be capped at $1,000 in base funding, plus an additional $7 for each linear foot of fence constructed. If you chose to go with the 9-wire electrified fence, your project cap would include $1,000 for the base funding, plus $4 per linear foot. If you chose to construct a predator-resistant fence around your dead stock compost pen, the change would be the base funding is $2,000 plus your linear rate depending on the type of fence you went with. As previously mentioned, using an apron on your fence is highly recommended. Doing so could increase your maximum payment by $1 per linear foot. Retrofitting an existing fence is an option that is most often to apply to sheep producers who want to further enhance the predator resistance of their current fence by adding an electrified top wire to meet the minimum height or including an apron to deter burrowing. Here's an example of how the payment would be calculated. The example project we will look at is a 9-wire electrified fence that is 1,875 feet long with an apron. Here are the rates for this type of fence. $1,000 for the base funding, plus $4 per foot for the 9-wire fence, plus an additional $1 per foot for the apron. Keep in mind, the personal labor and equipment expenses that can be claimed are capped at $1.50 per linear foot for this type of fence. So our base funding, once again, is $1,000 plus the additional funding per linear foot. That's our $4 times 1,875 feet, giving us an additional $7,500. Adding the extra funding available for including an apron gives us $1 times 1,875 feet, or an additional $1,875. When we add these numbers up, it appears we could be eligible for $10,375 worth of funding. However, we have a funding cap of $10,000. Now, since our funding is at 75% government, 25% producer, in order to reach your $10,000 maximum in funding, you must submit receipts and total expenses and eligible expenses of $13,333. Like I said, that would be your maximum payment of $10,000 based on 75% government funding. Remember that to reach the $13,330 in expenses needed for maximum funding, you can claim personal labor equipment up to $1.50 per foot for this type of fence. In this case, you can claim personal labor and equipment expenses of $2,810 based on the length of fence built. Up to 75% of this amount would be reimbursed by the program. Upon construction of your fence and completing the inspection, you're now ready to submit your claim with paid invoices and proof of payment. To review, this project is for constructing a 9-wire electrified fence with an apron, 1,875 feet in length. You have been approved for funding up to the maximum of $10,000 based on this type and size of fence. You could claim personal labor and equipment of $2,810. However, for this example, we will not include a claim for personal expenses, as we have further assumed that the fence was built by a custom contractor. Here's a list of eligible expenses you might submit for this project that totals $12,375. Keeping in mind, the program cost shares 75% of total eligible expenses. Your payment would then be $9,281, which fits within our maximum funding approved of $10,000. Let's look at another payment example. In this example project, we are constructing A wire net fence 256 feet in length, 70 inches high, around a dead stock compost pen. Based on this type and size of fence, the project will be capped at $2,000 for base funding plus $7 per linear foot. Keep in mind, the personal labor and equipment that could be claimed is capped at $3 per linear foot when constructing a fence for a dead stock compost site. Let's do the calculations. Our base funding, once again, is $2,000 plus the funding per linear foot. That's our $7 times 256 feet, giving us a total of an additional $1,792. When we add these two numbers together, the maximum grant for this project would be $3,792. That is well below our $10,000 program cap. As mentioned, the program cost shares at 75%, so to receive the maximum grant, you would have to submit $5,056 in total eligible expenses to receive the approved $3,792 in funding. As part of these expenses, you could submit personal labor and equipment of $3 per linear foot, or $768 in this example. Up to 75% of this amount would be reimbursed by the program. Here's how the claim submission may look for the second example. Remember, we were building a wire net fence 256 feet in length, 70 inches high, around a dead stock compost pen. We have been approved for funding of up to a maximum of $3,792 based on this size and type of fence. The personal labor and equipment that can be claimed has also been capped at $768. This is the list of eligible expenses you might submit for this example. Note that the expenses are totaling $5,240. However, when we look at the $840 of personal labor and equipment in this submission, we can see that the cap for personal expenses has been exceeded. Therefore, an adjustment will be made, and only $768 of personal expenses will be eligible. Our total expenses will then fall from $5,240 to $5,168. This project is cost shared at 75%, and so when we look at 75% of $5,168, we see a potential payment of $3,876. However, based on the size and type of fence, we note our project has been capped at $3,792. Therefore, we will only receive the $3,792 of funding that we were approved for. Please refer to our program guide found on the website and read the section on the fence standards that your fence must meet to pass inspection and be eligible for funding. Also read the appendix for guidelines and further fence design and construction recommendations that will help in deterring wolves, coyotes, and other predators. Upon completion of the fence, an inspection is needed to verify that the work has been completed and that the fence will deter predators from climbing over, passing through, or burrowing under. These inspections can be arranged by calling 1-800-811-4411 or by emailing agriculture@gov.mv.ca. Here are some important dates associated with the program. February 27th is the deadline for applications. Upon notification that your project has been approved, you will then have until October 31st to complete the fence construction. November 28th is the deadline for completing fence inspection. You must submit by December 19th your claim for payment, including all invoices and proof of payment. To apply to the program, you must submit both the applicant information form and the application worksheet, which can both be found on the program website. Please visit manitoba.ca/SCAP. Once there, click on the Resiliency and Public Trust option, which will then take you to the Predator-Resistant Fence Construction webpage. Here is where you'll find the program guide and application forms. Keep in mind, no quotes are necessary when submitting your application. If your fence project is approved, you will be sent a claim form to be submitted once fence construction is completed. Both the application and claim forms can be emailed to agriculture@gov.mb.ca. Further details are in the program guide found on the fence construction webpage. You may also reach out to our staff by emailing agriculture@gov.mb.ca or by calling 1-800-811-4411. In addition, keep your eyes open for the program fact sheet, which summarizes the details provided in this video.